Good afternoon, or good evening, depending on who you are and how you're feeling today. Thank you for joining us for another week of the See Us podcast, brought to you by the Narrative Justice. I am your host, Shannon Hughes. What's up? Like we always give honor to Leroy Powell. Leroy lost his life in 2014. He was 15 years old at the time. Leroy was a witness to an attempted murder slash and turned infanticide. And he gave witness statement, but what our local media did was they broadcasted his witness statement on the 11 o'clock news. And so because of that, Leroy lost his life several days later. And so it is very much because of Leroy's story. That is why we do what we do. It's very important that we hold local media accountable for the ways that they show up in our communities, the ways that they represent our communities. Narrative is super, super powerful. So it is important. It's very, very important that we're the gatekeepers of what our narrative is, like that's ours. So always definitely big ups to Leroy. Always, always, always give honor and respect to him and his mother. Always remind you all, it only takes about 25% of the community for change to occur. So don't ever think that your voice doesn't matter. Don't ever think that you can't spark change. You do not need everybody on your side. When you see right is right and wrong is wrong, when you see something that moves you to act, go ahead and act. Go and do what you got to do. Like, don't think that you need everybody to be on your wave in order for things to take place. Like, it only takes 25% for that change to occur. So never be discouraged. Always use your voice. Again, like, narrative is super powerful. And to that, if you are somebody with a story, right? Like if you are someone with an experience, particularly if it has to do with systemic violence, like police brutality and racism, if it has to do with, workplace violence or whatnot, or if it's something good, it doesn't always have to be like heavy stuff. It could be like great things that are going on in community, right? Like there's a lot of really great people doing really great things, and not everybody gets the visibility that they deserve. So if you would like to tell your story, you could always hit us up. You can call, text, email. Our number is 412-453-6309. Or you can email racialjusticemedia@gmail.com. And again, just to reiterate, there is real power in your voice. Tell your story. Don't ever let anyone take your voice away. So before we get into the show for today, I want to give some updates. So if you all tuned in with us last week or the week before, actually, we had Homewood residents and state representative and mayor-elect Ed Gainey on to talk about the Homewood water crisis. If you're not aware of what's going on, what we learned collectively is that for the past going on 4 years, Homewood, namely around the Monticello and Race Street area, has been dealing with this water crisis that has been absolutely insane. It all started after PWSA, that's Pittsburgh Water and Sewage Authority, and Penn Joint Water Authority, did some work on Fuchsia Way on a sinkhole, a small sinkhole, like no bigger than like the size of a chair, that grew to be like bigger than a house. After they performed this work, all of a sudden, like all of the residents, or a good number of residents, started experiencing like these issues with their water and their sewage. Many of the folks have like sewage backed up into their homes, flooding in their homes, like all sorts of like disparities and just wildness going on. They've reached out to PWSA, they've reached out to the PUC, and what they're told by PWSA is somehow it is this one resident's fault, Miss Tanya McClendon Todd, which is weird, right? Like, how can Miss Tanya's house be responsible for water and sewage issues in multiple homes across multiple streets? That doesn't make sense. That makes no sense at all. So we had a press conference last week on Thursday, I think, Thursday or Friday. I don't know what today is. So we just had a press conference to discuss it. Super powerful. Like a lot of residents and landlords and property owners and business owners came out to speak on like what their experience has been. Since we, did the press release, we've all collectively been, receiving, contact from other people that we didn't even know about, telling us also that they've been dealing with the same issue, and they had no idea that there was like this movement brewing. They just been quietly dealing with it, like everyone else has quietly been dealing with it. So it's been absolutely wild. You can check our episode about the water crisis to get a little bit more context. There has been some press on it as well. At the press conference, there was a public hearing that was called by the residents. So they are calling out the powers that be That's PWSA, Penn Joint Water, the city of Pittsburgh, and a host of elected officials to come and be accountable for this crisis. That public hearing will be July 8th, 2021, 6 p.m. at Baptist Temple Church, 7241 Ray Street, Pittsburgh, PA 15208. Excuse me, I need to slow down. I had too much coffee today. So if you are someone who would want to attend that, you can definitely do so. Please do, especially if you're someone who's impacted. If you want to get involved at all, you can reach out to Ms. Tanya Todd to assist with the movement, because this is going to definitely be a marathon. You can do that. You can call or text 412-357-6525, or you can email her at Tanya, that's Tanya, D as in dog, T as in Tom, 7 @gmail.com. Now, the last thing, and I don't mean to carry this on for too long, but I think it is very, very important that we are, like, we just know, like, how deep this runs. So I do want to play you all a clip from the press conference. Bear with the audio a little bit, because it was kind of low. We didn't have a bullhorn at the time. So, but Gabby Gray, shout out to Gabby Gray. She came through. She's a Homewood resident impacted, and she shared with us. Yeah, she shared with us just some receipts. She shared with us some receipts of what was going on, what's been going on, not even just with like the Homewood water crisis, but with PWSA, period. Like the long history of what's been going on. That's absolutely just it's wild. Like, it's wild. Like, and if this clip is not enough to get you, to feel like you need to be involved, I really don't know what could. It is really, really important that we all push into this. Like, whatever's going on in Homewood, please believe it's not just Homewood. Like I said, a lot of folks have been reaching out and, telling their own stories. Like, historically, I seen recently, and I can't think of the young woman's name, so I apologize for that. But a woman had shared that I want to say, and if I misstated, I will put it in the comments, but she has stated that she's been fighting this since she was a Girl Scout, I think, like 55 years ago, like the water issue, the same issues. And she's been fighting this 55 years ago. And now today, 55 years later, her daughter is being displaced because of this issue, this very same issue. So it's wild. So I'm trying to get the video to upload. Hopefully it does so sooner rather than later. But either way, I'm going to play it on this live, because it is important. So we might have to do it a little bit later because it's being slow. All right, whatever. All right, so we'll do that a little bit later, because I don't want to hold you all up, and I definitely don't want to hold up our guest for today. So we'll get into that. So for today, what we're focusing on is Baby Nell. Now, Baby Nell, you may or may not know about Baby Nell. You probably know about Baby Marcus, right? Like, Baby Marcus, if you happen to not know, was the infant who lost his life several years ago. He was 15-month-old baby. He was in East Hills attending a cookout with his auntie, some family, friends, whatnot, when some folks came up, shot up the event, and Marcus and his aunt were hit. His aunt, thankfully, she survived, but unfortunately, Marcus did not survive that attack. So, there was a movement that was led by Larry Davis, and shout out to him. He definitely kept Baby Marcus's name alive. It was nearly about to be another blip, like everything else, right? Like, we hear about something, it's like on the news for 2 seconds and it goes away, and then we never hear about it again. But Larry Davis was very intentional about making sure that we didn't forget about Baby Marcus. So like, that was like a 2-year movement. So in that time, though there was a lot of information and like some growth and progress, we really didn't get to like, well, who did this to Baby Marcus? Several years later, the person who was involved, they were identified and arrested. Now, what we come to find out is that the person who confessed to being a shooter that, ended up taking Marcus's life also was the person who shot Baby Nell. Now, again, like, you may or may not have heard about Nell. Like, Nell didn't have that type of like visibility like Baby Marcus did. And so today we're going to be speaking with his mother, because there was new development in Baby Marcus's case. However, no new development in Baby Nell's case. So I want to bring on Miss Clarice Burse. Hey, Clarice, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
Doing good. I need to get centered. Doing good, doing good. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me.
Most definitely. So, Clarice, you and I got acquainted sometime last year, and we had this discussion and whatnot. But it was such a chaotic time. I wanted to make sure that like we definitely got your story out because it's absolutely like all of it is like really, really wild. And also, like you don't deserve to carry this around. Your son definitely doesn't deserve to carry this around on your own. There needs to be some accountability. So before we get into that, where if can I ask where are you from?
I'm from Down Lormer. Grew up in East Liberty. Still live in East Liberty. Haven't went nowhere.
Word up, word up. And how old is your son? How old's Nell?
He is 9 now.
Oh, and how old was he when this happened to him?
He was 3 years old.
Wow. So your 3 year old baby. So if I could ask, can you tell us what happened to your son?
On September 16, 2015, we were celebrating his godfather's life, who was taken from us 2 years beforehand on the same date. There was also a birthday party going on right beside us. So there was like bouncy houses. It was more of a community thing, and it was a less people, more family than friends. We were having a good time. We prayed. We did the balloon release, and maybe about 5 minutes after the balloon release, my car was blocking one side of the street. His godfather's grandmother's car was blocking the other side. My friend's mother, who also got shot that night, was sitting in my passenger door, holding my son in her arms. And I told them that I was going to say goodbye so I could take her to the Wilkinsburg bus station. As I'm walking to say goodbye to everyone, shots just ring out. I turn around, I'm looking for my son. I don't see him, but I see my friend's mother on the ground shot. Looking, my son happened to run past me. I grabbed him. Luckily, a lady that was living on Lang had her door cracked because she was seeing what was going on. So we ran in there. I seen blood everywhere. When I looked, I wasn't hit. And then I happened to look at my son and his face was hanging. And then I knew he was hit. From there, we went to Children's where he was put in a coma for some time. Um, he didn't have to have no plastic surgery, but he definitely had 2 surgeries. He had to learn how to use the bathroom all over again. He still doesn't trust anyone. It's hard to take him places sometimes. The loud pops still get to him a little bit. Um, it altered him a lot. He used to be a very, very outgoing kid. He's more to himself now. It was a crazy night. It was, I don't even know how to explain it. I thought they were shooting for a good 5 minutes. Found out it was only 2.4 seconds of shooting.
Wow, wow. And just like I'm thinking about that feeling of like something that was less than 3 seconds long, feeling like it's stretched on to be 5 minutes. 5 minutes is not a short amount of time. If you ever like sit still for 5 minutes and you're aware of the time, it's so long. It is so long, and to feel like 2.5 seconds is 5 minutes. Like that's like that. Like I'm just thinking about the trauma of that. Like why your body would have slowed time down so much in that way. Can you tell us like how has this been for you? Like what did that feel like for you?
So I'm a single mother, and everyone told me, "Oh, you're having a kid young." I felt like I failed my son, like I didn't protect him. My sister had came before the shooting came, and she's like, "Oh, at first I was gonna let her take him, but he was having fun, and there were other kids there. I didn't think anything was gonna happen, and when it happened, to this day, I blame myself. It's hard to deal with it because what happens to them, you think as a mother, you do everything to protect your child, and sometimes things happen that you can't explain. I've had people ask me, "What did I do for this to happen to my son?" I've had people say I got my son shot intentionally. No one knows the story. No one knows what the cops uncovered to prove that what was going on, that there was nothing I could have did to change the situation.
That's a wild thought for anyone to have. It's like you're out at a thing, at a function, getting ready to leave, people start shooting, your baby gets shot, somebody else gets shot, and folks are like, well, what did you do to cause this? How? Like, like how would that be anybody's thought process? Like, that's insane to me. That's absolutely insane to me. Mm. Okay, so like you've been holding a lot of guilt around this. I know, I'm sure you know this, but I also feel inclined to say so and remind you that you're not at fault for that. There's, as you just said, there's nothing you could have done. There's not one thing you could have done to change this. But I recognize that, like, it's hard to not feel, it's hard to not feel like, if I only, like, if I only did this, but it's not your fault. Um, have you you talked a little bit about Nell's, like, PTSD around this. Have you yourself experienced any mental and emotional changes, any lifestyle changes after that happened? If I could ask.
Um, I check that. So I have another son, so I'm always checking in their room, making sure they're breathing. I kind of have a little PTSD from it. Um, Loud pops, little cans fall in the kitchen. I'm like, what's that? So like I had to do some counseling. I'm still doing some counseling for myself. It's hard to get the image when you see a child like that, or when you see blood all over you, and it's not your blood and it's your child. This just the image you cannot get out your head. Seeing them hooked up to the tubes, having to do wound care when he came home. It was hard. Him not being able to eat solid foods. How do you tell a 3-year-old he can't have what he wants? Like that was the hardest. Telling him he couldn't eat what he wanted to eat.
Mm. And okay, so you said you had counseling. Has the boys, have they had any therapy? Has Nell had any therapy?
Um, yeah, he went through trauma therapy through Allegheny Health Network. We have some free services that I use, and it helped. It helped a lot. He was able to talk about what happened, and he was actually able to tell me what actually happened to him. So I'm thinking, because my friend's mom shot on the ground, I'm thinking he got shot at the same time as her. No, he walked over to get a juice off the porch, and he said he felt something hot hit his face and he fell, and he got back up and started running. So he knew exactly what happened. He just didn't know that he was shot until, of course, he got a little bit older. And I told him what was going on. Sorry, there was someone outside my car.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm glad he had some help, because like, that is, like, super traumatic, and there's so many of us that walk around with all of this trauma and no outlet, like no safe places to unravel what happened. Like, to even get back in touch with what happened. So I'm glad like, both you and your son had that opportunity to get into that. So can you tell me, if it's okay, with the investigation has been like, for your son's case?
It's been all over the place. It's been pretty hard on me, my mother, and also his mom, because we actually dealt with his uncle being shot in July um, of 2013, 2 years before he got shot. So the way the investigation went with his case, we didn't understand why it wasn't going the same way with Ronell's. So for a long time, there was no motion, and then they put together a task force with the Pittsburgh police and the ATF. And when they came in, they had names, they knew things. They were coming to ask me certain things to see if I knew stuff, but most of the stuff I didn't know, because I'm the type of person, I hang with everyone. So if you have a spat with someone else, that has nothing to do with me. So some of the things they were bringing to me, I didn't know what's going on. I didn't know things, and I even where I found out that it was 2.4 seconds is at a grand jury. Like, for the longest, I couldn't live my life because my son was a federal witness. I couldn't go certain places because I knew that maybe the people they were looking for would be around. Like, I didn't go to Homewood a lot. I didn't go out a lot because I knew that they were following me also. So it was like, it was chaotic to know these names and know that they were still out on the street, and to know that they were close to home. A lot of these guys I knew since I was little. A lot of them I recently was hanging out with, be right I was pregnant with Ronell. You know, they knew when I had my son. And these are people that some of them I had conversations with daily where they could have told me to not be there. They could have told me to not bring my child there. And this is where this code thing gets mixed up, because you not telling me, or you telling me to me it's not snitching, my child was hurt and it could have been changed. So a lot of that with the case not going nowhere, I was getting frustrated. Then one day I get told out of nowhere, your son has to show up to court. And I'm like, I'm not dragging him into court. What's going on? The police showed up at my job and everything as if I was guilty. Right after I got the subpoena, maybe a couple hours later, I was being told people were being released and the charges were being dropped. And I didn't know why. Come to find out, the person that confessed to shooting baby Marcus and also my son was given immunity on Marcus's case and my son's case if the Wilkinsburg Massacre ended in an indictment and, you know, time, sentencing and everything. And because that case blew up, it blew up every other case. I've been trying. I go down to the DA's office. I go online because you can file a petition online now. I've filed a petition against each person separately. I filed it with everybody's name on it. Still no replies. I've asked to speak to the DA. There's always something that's going on. He's too busy. At one point in time, they told me they didn't know about my son's case. And my problem is these people are out here living every day. I don't know if, you know, they have harsh feelings towards me. I don't know what's going on. And the fact that they can live every day and be with their kids or whatever the case may be, and my son has to live with what happened to him, is unfair. Because I teach my kids that when you do something, you get punished. And if you get away with it one time, you're not going to get away with it again. And the fact that this boy shot and killed baby Marcus, and I grew up with his aunt and mom right up here in Garfield, and shot my son, and he just thought he was going to get away with it, is ridiculous. For our DA's office to even offer immunity is ridiculous. Lesser time, maybe, because I wanted the family for the massacre to get their justice too. But immunity, no time, that's like saying my son doesn't matter. And I've been calling around trying to find lawyers, you know, to maybe get his case moving the way, you know, Mimi did for baby Marcus. And a lot of people is scared to go against our DA office. A lot of people. And it's sad. And for this man to be in there since 99 and him to be sending out emails about African-American lawyers and how he feels about us, it's time for him to go. Because my son deserves justice. And with him in office, he's not going to get it. He's not.
Yeah. And what Clarice just brought up about DA Zapala has been in there for over 20 years. And recently he sent out an email to his subordinates stating that they should not grant plea deals for attorney Milton Rayford. Milton Rayford, Black attorney, called out racism in the courthouse recently. And after that, that was Zapala retaliating against him. Unfortunately for him, but fortunately for us, that email got out to the public and we all found, well, I mean, basically what we already know about the guy was confirmed. Yeah, like I'm thinking about like this idea of immunity for something as severe as, shooting people, killing people. I think about like accountability a lot. Like, so like, as you were talking about like less time, maybe, because the family or whatever else, like, but no time, like no accountability, right? Like whatever that looks like, there's none of it for you and for your son and for Mimi and her son. Like, why would that even be a thing? Like, like we're talking about people, it's not cases, right? So offering just like a get out of jail free card, like, and I'm personally, I'm pretty against chattel slavery, which is, prisons and such. Like, I'm just not here for it as a thing, but I'm also not here for folks not being accountable for their actions, right? Because that type of violence, it tends to turn into other violence. Like, you can't just let folks walk off. That's how we end up with all types of other stuff, right? Like, so I'm just thinking about like all of those things. Like, none of it makes sense. and then thinking about like the callousness of someone saying like, oh, you can walk if you can help us win this case. And be clear, it's not about any of the people involved, right? It's not about the families who are affected in Wilkinsburg. It's not about your family. It's not about Mimi's family. It's not about the babies. It's not about your friend's mom who got shot as well. Like, they just wanted to win a case, and they didn't. Like, didn't even do that. And then subsequently, like, turn all of your families kind of upside down from there. So that's, yeah, all of that is kind of like swarming in my head. Yeah. So recently there was a new arrest, or there was something in the news recently about Baby Marcus's case.
They did bring charges against him. So I don't know. I haven't looked up it recently, and I don't want to quote nothing because, once again, that's not my son, or I don't know a lot about the case. But I don't know if they went to trial or sentenced him or anything. But I do know that he did get arrested for it, and that's why I'm saying, where is the justice for my son? There was also a 12-year-old, which was actually my son's godfather's niece. She was also shot in the ankle. So my son, an older woman, which was my friend's mother, and another child. And baby Marcus, I feel like our justice system is failing our kids the way we felt the shooter. Because something was going on that he felt at the age that he was, because he's only like 22, 23. So he was like 15 at the time. And for him to feel like he can shoot into a crowd of people like that, and the other people that were with him, something was wrong. Somewhere we failed as a community, as Pittsburgh. Like, we don't stand together as Pittsburgh. We stand together as, oh, that's East Liberty. That's Homewood. That's Wilkinsburg. When it should be, this is Pittsburgh. We should be together no matter what. I don't understand how we can get together and march for just police brutality when we're damaging each other. We're damaging each other. And if we don't stand up for us, they don't care. Accountability. It starts with us. It starts with us. It starts with figuring out what we can do to minimize what's going on, i.e. bringing charges and figuring out what's going on, because luckily I'm the type of mother, I don't want nobody else to be crying over their child, and other people would have took matters into their own hands. They would have went and tried to get whoever by whatever name they heard in the streets, and that's not what I want. I don't want no street justice. I just want everyone to be held accountable of what they did. I found out there were like 14 people involved. There were jail calls. There were jail letters. The person that ordered this was in jail at the time. And if he would have got convicted on this, he would have been careered. Meaning he has multiple cases like this that either he's done or was involved in, which is not okay. I don't believe in prisons, but I do believe in, when someone is harming the neighborhood, they do need to be put away, because I've seen people in my life get put away longer for drugs. You've taken people away from their families for 25 years for drugs, and you were going to give this young man immunity. He needs help, whether it's in the jail and getting psych help, or in a mental institute, and he does not need to be with the community, though, and neither does his friends, because their backgrounds is just as long as his. They were all involved, and I just don't understand. And being though that a lot of people that I knew and grew up with were involved, it hurts. Females buying guns for these guys. As females, we have to get it together. Getting your gun license and purchasing a gun for a guy that say he loves you is not what you're supposed to do, because now this female that did buy the guns have felonies now. Now you can't live your life for your children because you bought this gun and this is what they did with it.
Yeah. Ooh, so much of what you said. Well, I'm thinking about a few things. First, I'm thinking about, like, we are definitely out here when it's police brutality. But folks are still out here when it comes to community violence as well, though it doesn't get, national headlines when it's community violence. But what I will say is that, like, it's so inconsistent, is that, like, we can be out here and say, like, we need to stop shooting each other and whatever else, like, but like in those quiet times, like, where is all this concern? So I'm thinking about, the young man, like, he's 20 something now, he was 15 when this happened. Like, the level of turmoil a 15-year-old would have to have experienced to be in a position that you just shooting a bunch of kids, like, and shooting into a crowd, like, putting yourself in that position and putting other people in that position. It's like, to your point, where did we fail repeatedly, like consistently, how are we not showing up? So it's like it's all cute when we don't see the violence, but when we see the violence, all of a sudden stop the violence. No, stop participating in it. Like, stop looking the other way, stop turning a blind eye, because this is the outcome. Like when you see kids hurting, do something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't turn a blind eye when you see people being harmed. Do something. Don't turn a blind eye, because this is what the outcome is. It just is. Like, we know that for facts. And I like, the other thing I'm thinking about is, like, your son was hurt in this really, really traumatic way, right? Like, your family, you were hurt in this really, really traumatic, complex way, right? Because, like, not only was your son, a victim of gun violence, but it's like the community connections with you and the folks involved. And it's like, I could imagine, I can only imagine, like, how shattering that was when you found out, and how, like, just having to navigate that reality has been. But what I'm thinking about and what I want to highlight is that you're also holding this compassion of, like, but he was a kid too. Like, like, this was a kid. Like, what did we do that caused him to even be this? Like, and holding on to that accountability. Like, no, something got to happen, because this isn't okay. Like, it's not, and it isn't. Like, it's not okay. But also, like, holding the humanity of another person that's caused you this amount of harm. Like, I just want to highlight that, because we don't always get that from folks, no matter how good they want to tell us that they are. Like, you don't really get that from folks, so I want to recognize that of you. So there was an arrest. The guy is in jail, but for Marcus's case, not yours. What does that mean? So I'm not exactly sure, like, what does that mean? I know that means that the charges or whatever is all focused on this one case, and it's not focused on your case. But what does that translate into for you and your family?
Well, that, to us, we just need to fight to get get the charges brought, because, like I said, there was another little girl whose mom may feel like, they're only focusing over here. So I talked to her a lot, and she feels like, what's the use? My daughter's older now. And I kind of felt like that a little bit, until my son asked me, did they get in trouble? So it's like, now I have to just keep getting my voice out there and keep talking about what happened to these children. Not just my son, the little girl too, because she matters. My son matters. Baby Marcus matter. We all matter, even the shooter. And we have to, I don't know. The way my mom raised me is, people do things, but you have to forgive them for you. So where I'm trying to get in my heart is forgiving them, but at the same time, accountability. So I'm just trying to get their story out there, get the get what happened heard and everything. Like, I've made a YouTube video, I post on Facebook every day. I just need everyone to know what these children went through, and that it's not okay, and we need to step up and figure it out. I don't know, they say it's because people are having kids younger. I don't kind of think it's that, because my grandparents had kids younger. I think it's that the neighbors are not allowed to step in no more. Like, I used to be able to knock on my neighbor's door if my mom wasn't home, or if I was doing something wrong, my neighbor would yell outside, do you want me to call your mom? I'm not saying putting hands on children, but nowadays you can't even correct someone else's child. And that's where we're going wrong at, because these kids are out here doing things that we don't know, and we're at work. And these kids doing things lead to things like this. My son being shot, my friend's niece being shot, my friend's mother being shot, baby Marcus' life being taken. I think I heard there was a 6-year-old that just died recently. Um, a woman was shot holding her baby. A man was put, like, it's ridiculous that you're pulling up on people with their children. Their children. To know that these boys sat on the scene and watched us. They hunted us. There was urine, sunflower seeds, cigarette butts. They hunted us. This is what they wanted to do. They have to be held accountable. They have to. Like, I don't know what more to say. Like, and then I just don't know. I don't even know how to feel. I'm just trying to get to a point in my heart where I can forgive for me, but also show my sons that you can't get away with this. You can't. So if that means focus on baby Marcus's case, get that done, and then over here, okay, but we're not going to forget them. We're not going to be quiet. I'm not going to stop posting and telling people that we need to get Zapala out. And I feel as though he doesn't need to resign. He needs to be fired. He doesn't deserve his pension. Someone that works for everyone deserves their pension. My family is hurting. Why do your family get to live okay and you don't do your job? That's like stealing time at work, making salary and not coming in. That's not fair. Why do my tax dollars have to pay him to live great? It's not okay. And he's not doing what he's supposed to for my child.
That's period. Yeah, definitely. And that's super important, right? I don't think people realize that so much. I've heard very recently in the recent past, right? Because we had a lot of politicians, career politicians who have been absolutely disgusting to our communities, as we found out. And I've heard people say like, oh, well, they're not going to run again or whatever else. It's like, it's not about that. Like there again, and it comes back to accountability. You can't just treat people like they're nothing. You can't treat communities like you're nothing, especially when you're an elected official. Like what you do today doesn't only affect today, like, you know, and it doesn't just affect like a small, it affects everybody for years and years and years. And so like to not, you know, remove somebody against their will from their seat, like, you know, is a lack of accountability, right? Like you shouldn't, like, why would we reward you for this action? Like, and I'm thinking about Romir Talley, you know, Tasha still ain't got justice for her son. Like, you know, and the mayor and the police chief hid who killed him. And we're actively going against this, like, you know, like the community outpouring, like actively harming and inciting violence against the community, asking for accountability and transparency. Like, why should they be able to just walk? Like, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. So you're right. So I want to jump back to the young man, the shooter, because it's like all of it is very, very wild. But one thing I don't know, I don't understand, or I'm just not aware of, is his confession. Do you know anything about like where that came from? Like, did he offer it up? Like what is the basis of that confession? If you know, if I could ask.
Well, I got multiple stories, of course, from the police, from the task force. Basically, he was caught on something else, and he told them, "I have information on this case," but basically he needed immunity for these other two cases he would confess to. And because the Wilkinsburg Massacre, which we know was really, really big and tragic, I actually went to school with some of those people. Um, they needed that case to go their way for the media. They needed to look great. If they get who slaughtered this family, that's an ace in his pocket. And they would do anything, and like we seen on the news, pay witnesses to win this case. That makes me think about, how many times did you pay a witness on a drug case that you took one of our children's father away, or one of our sons, or one of our brothers, or one of our uncles, grandfathers that's been in jail for a long time since the man been in office? How many people did you pay for those cases? Then it also make you feel like, are there people downtown that he paid that maybe didn't kill this person, was telling the truth? So it makes you question everything. And it's like, I don't even want our DA's office to deal with it. I want the attorney in general to deal with my son's case, because they're corrupt. It's time for him to come step down and deal with what's going on down here in Pittsburgh, because it's not okay.
I have a question about like community, but I do want to ask before I get to that. Have you reached out or tried to engage Josh Shapiro on your son's case?
Yes, I have, through email, social media, even old fashioned letter. Nothing back yet, but I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep, hashtagging him, adding him, calling, whatever I can do to get his attention. Like I said, I made a video. My son's even on Facebook asking himself, why aren't they in jail? What are they going to do for him? Because he knows if he hits his little brother, you're in the corner. Or if you take something from him, you're in the corner. Or if his brother do something to him, it's the same thing. So it's like, how come these people can bring harm to me and nothing happens?
Mm, yeah. So that brings me over to my other question. I'm curious about is what has what has community felt like for you in this circumstance? Like, has there been protection and safety and support for you and your son and your family? Or like what is the dynamic? If that makes sense.
To be honest, we actually like you and I call her Mama C, but her name is Carol Speaks. That is actually her grandson who was my son's godfather. Her granddaughter was actually shot that night. She's excellent. She's always been there. She's always checking on us. That's Mama C for us. We've had my uncle Ed Gainey, my mom's good friend. He's reached out. We've talked. He's been trying, with everything going on, it's kind of hard for him to focus on what's going on over here and trying to get in his mayor spot. We need him, So he calls. I've talked to him a few times. I've had a few people reach out, but I feel like when it comes to my son's case, he doesn't. The community doesn't round around us. Like he played for Garfield and everything, and I don't know. He doesn't even want to play sports no more. I always have to explain what happened to him, but it doesn't. He feels like he just has us, and I feel the same way. I feel like I don't have the community behind us. I feel like it's just like, yep, it happened. He's here. Get over it. But just like a death of your child, this um this hurts. This hurts, and it hurts the child. It hurts. It definitely hurts, and it's like I don't know. It's really hard, and it tore families apart. Like my son's father was upset at me at one point in time, and it's hard. And to not have the community support the way I see other people, it saddens me. Sometimes I get a little upset, but at the same time, I have to keep pushing because I'm the voice for my son. I have to be the voice for my family.
Yeah. Mm, I definitely hear all that. I'm thinking about like how community generally just deals with like crisis like this, right? Because you're and I'm thinking about like I'm thinking about how insular this all is. These aren't outside people that came to Pittsburgh. It's like these are folks that you knew. No, like in all of these different ways. And so I'm thinking about like what does the community generally do when there's a tragedy? Like harm done in the community, and largely from my experience is not great. Like it's not much of anything, like, and even like folks, it'll be like the few, I mean, there'll be a few folks that'll do what they can, right? But it can't just be a few folks, right? Like it got to be the community itself, like being very intentional about, okay, this thing happened, all of these people were impacted, all of these people were involved, and this is how we're going to like we're going to move forward, like this is what this looks like, so that it doesn't continue to splinter out and exist. I am personally thinking about, like I'm thinking about my in 2016 my baby brother was stabbed in his neck by somebody trying to defend some girl. And like and the guy's mentor is somebody that I know quite well. And then when it came to nothing happened to him, he walked, like he completely just walked, and we didn't even know about it, like just found out like nothing happened. And when I reached out to his mentors, like, Brad, like I'm really struggling with this, right? Because like to your point, like I didn't want street justice, but also that was our first reaction, if I'm being quite honest. Like so I understand retaliatory violence, like I understand it wholeheartedly, right? For a lot of reasons. And it took a lot of strength, and the ancestors, God and the universe, like, no, like, no, just hold on, just be still, like, so it took so much. And like, I reached out to their mentor. I was like, Brad, I'm struggling a lot. I really need to talk to you. And they avoided me like the plague. I ain't heard, hey, nor like I ran into them somewhere, and they like, I didn't even say anything about it because I knew it was a lot to drop on somebody. So I was kind of giving space. And they ended up like apologizing, like, I'm sorry, it was heavy, like it was hard. I didn't know what to say or whatever, but we'll catch up. I was like, okay, cool. It's all good. And then they ghosted again. And at that point, it's like, okay, you know what you're doing, bruh. Like, and you know what I'm dealing with over here. And it's like, so if we didn't have the strength that we had, if we didn't have like the slither of hope and support in our own little family, like a lot that could have turned into a lot more like violence. You know what I mean? And it's like, it could have been so simple. You could have just talked to me, bro. Like that's all it took. That's all I wanted, you know? And thankfully my brother survived, like, and he's doing better now, but like, it's not been easy. It's not been easy. So I'm thinking like, so, you know, like, as you were saying that, I'm thinking about like, I've never really seen community show up like in tragedy and crisis in a good way, in a way that's supportive of anybody, you know, like not in a way that really like holds what happened and moving forward in a healthy way. I personally have never seen it, you know. But anyway, off my soapbox. Uh, so
I actually have one more thing to say about community. One thing that tears me up is my father. He passed in 2017, but he definitely had an addiction, but outside of his addiction, he was very involved in the community. Connie Hawkins, he was a referee. He did the basketball camp. I was there. Mr. Zeke, Bill Nell. These are people, you know, that were community oriented, and everyone knew my father. They actually called him the Mayor of East Liberty. And to see that his people are not even rallying behind me, it's like, wow. Like, really? Like, he's been involved. He was involved in sports. I was involved. I actually graduated from Peabody High School, but I went back to Westinghouse to make sure I volunteer and be in these kids' lives. So it's just like, don't understand how people can't rally around, and they say it takes a village. Well, what happened to the village? My dad was a well-known DJ too, when Constantine's and Caprice Lounge. And where is the village? I need my village. Where's my village? Like I said, I still cry at night. So where's the person I can call on the phone and say, hey, this is what's bothering me. I still feel like this. Or my son doesn't have, where we live at, there's a lot of girls around here. There's no boys. No one has called like, hey, you think Nell will feel comfortable coming to my house? Or do you want to meet up at the park? It's little things like that that can help through. And I don't even get that. Like when he got shot, I got the people that lived around me. They, you know, Sunflowers and Brightside was his school at the time. They rallied around him. But after he came home, it was like, oh, he's home. He's alive, which is not okay.
Absolutely. It's like that feeling of loneliness, of being alone and dealing with this like tragedy on your own. And like, and everyone expecting you to just like, you're good, you know, you're alive. Okay, we're moving forward. We held the tragedy. We had the whatever, like we screamed and cried on Facebook. We did the things, and now you're good. And so we're moving forward, which also like, I say that and recognize that like there are folks like it's really, really easy to get burned out when it's just you. You know, like it's super, super easy to get burned out. Like I'm burned out every day because like, you know, there's always something, and that I understand. But again, like when it's just like a few of us, like that's why you get burned out, because like this expectation of like showing up as a community, as an individual is not okay. You know, like, but it is those little things, right? Just knowing that people see you, you know, and knowing that people understand and understand what you're going through, and knowing that people are embracing you and supporting you and protecting you. Like it goes such a long way, and to be denied that, like, right, in our community. And I say all that, like, I don't necessarily blame our communities for that. Like I blame gentrification. I blame like systemic racism and systemic violence. Like it's not lost on me that many of our folks were either carted off to jail, probably illegally. Like, you know, like our folks have been killed by the police and everybody else. Our folks have been displaced due to gentrification, like all of these things, right? So it's really hard to even know who our community is, because like it's new people every 15, 20 years. You know, like, and we're being pushed into neighborhoods and communities that we're not native to, like, you know, so it's really hard to identify with folks. Like, so I can say all of these things of what we're missing in community, but I'll also recognize, like, I don't personally think that that's a fault of our own. It's just something that we need to recognize. It's that, like, it's harming us, right? Like we have all of this trauma, all of this pain, all of us, right? Like, and forced to kind of suffer in silence. And then also, like, because there's not that community, it's like, well, then how do you hold someone accountable when you're not in community with them? Right? Like, how is it then not just street justice? How is it not just like, you know, like punitive, whatever, like when you're not able to, like when you don't break bread with these people, like, you know what I mean? Like you don't see them on a regular basis. Like, and I mean, see them as like human beings. But again, off my soapbox, climb on down. The last thing that's on my mind right now, anyway, I want to ask you is like, what is it like? What can the community do? You talked a little bit about that just now. What can the community do to support you and your son? And then what does this journey look like for you moving forward? You're muted, love.
Basically, make some noise. You don't have to actually go into the DA's office no more. I know that people are still concerned about COVID to file a petition. I will post the link later on in the event so people can go on there. Just file a petition. I'll put the names in and just make some noise. And when I call for help, be there. I know people have jobs. I know everyone can't just get up and go, but you've made flyers that I've put out weeks and weeks before, things that people can know, and just share it. Like sometimes when you share things, someone that's not even in Pittsburgh notice it, and them making noise makes it bigger. Like all I can say is just band together and like we need to do some community counseling. Like some of us might not have degrees in counseling, but we've been through some things so we can understand what other people went through. Like after my son got shot in 2015, he witnessed me get shot in 2018. You know what I mean? So if we have some community therapy and talk to each other and understand that we're not alone in this, it'll build us up. Our foundation is shaky. And if we could just rebuild our foundation and not worry about, oh, you live in East Liberty, or oh, you live in Hunwood, or that shooting happened on the north side, or Pittsburgh, or one. Yes, you might not drive, so you might not be able to go over to the north side and be at a balloon release but you can share. You can post how you feel. Social media is really the biggest outlet. We can call, we can send letters, but people are really being noticed on social media. I've reached out to Kim K, Kanye, everybody, because this is who's doing things. It's sad that I can't look deep into my own city, but that's why we need to build our foundation up. We definitely do.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like narrative is super powerful. That's our most powerful tool is our narrative, like our voices. So like using them actively, like that's not only an act of resistance, it is an act of love and an act of accountability, so long as we're using it correctly. There's plenty of times that folks will use it, to exploit and harm folks, like which is also why we need to use our voices to protect each other, to love one each other, and to hold each other accountable, for that reason as well. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I appreciate your time today. Is there anything else that you want to say, speak out into the universe before we cut out today?
Just hold your kids, hug your mom, your dad, whoever you have, because things happen. You never know. You could be at a family cookout, like how baby Marcus was and his aunts, and deal with what happened. You can be where we were, surrounded by friends and family. Things can happen. So just make sure you hold on to each other and your neighbors. Like, we're all one community. If your neighbor's hurting, guess what? That whole block's hurting. If you can't stand up with the water problem, if we can't stand together about the water, how are we gonna get to come together about what's going on? They don't care because it seems like we don't care. And I know some people try to stay out the way because they don't want to be involved or they don't want no one to come back on them. But that's the problem. If there's more people involved, trust and believe there's not going to be no retaliation. The bigger, the better. The smaller, they attack.
Yep. Violence happens in secret, so you shed a light on things and it tends to dissipate. Absolutely. Which is why it's important that we continue to shed light on the water crisis. So I want to get to that in a second, but I want to thank you so much, Clarice, for taking this time out and continuing and being unrelentless about telling your son's story and fighting for your son. Because it is important, right? We have to stop that cycle of violence that has been going on for X amount of years now. So I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Bruh, I was talking the whole time and didn't realize I was muted. Anyway, so that was Clarice Burse. Thank you so much for joining us today. So as promised, I want to play this clip from the press conference that happened last week at PWSA with the Homewood residents who are pushing for accountability for the crumbling infrastructure. And make no mistake, it's crumbling infrastructure that led to the Homewood water crisis. So I'm going to play this clip super strong. Bear with me. It's a little bit low, but it's super important.
My name is Gabrielle Gray. I'm a Homewood resident, City of Pittsburgh District 9. And it is my concern Water Sewage Authority is getting away with horrendous offenses that are 100% criminal. And instead of sweeping the offenses of Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority under the rug, these offenses must be taken to our district attorney as well as to Josh Shapiro. It is well past time for you to handle your business, elected officials, and punish, not slap on the wrist, Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority for their magnanimous crimes against their customers. Moreover, per the recommendation of Attorney Josh Shapiro, it is time to force the necessary reforms to take shape to keep Pittsburgh's drinking water safe. Shapiro made this statement after he filed 161 third-degree misdemeanor charges, which should have been felony charges in 2019 against Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority for failing to notify residents of his water line replacement and failed to conduct sampling, which still to this date, sampling in its entirety has not occurred. If anything further stated is not yet considered criminal, then we have to have legislation passed to make every single item hereafter address a crime. Number one, Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority has been charging customers for polluted water that is due to Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority's extreme neglect without providing to all customers free filters or rebate coupons for water filtration, which creates a bottled filtered water bill on top of the already existing Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority bill. Number two, Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority received a slap on the wrist in 2021 for violating the Clean Water Act by dumping sludge into the Allegheny County River. More needs to be done to punish Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority for this magnanimous crime. Number three, Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority is now increasing water rates for lead-filled water, soon to make water unaffordable for the city of Pittsburgh residents. Number four, Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority has caused a grotesquely serious rat problem without any rat control in the city by digging up old lead lines that Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority should have been replaced. The EPA only gave Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority a citation for violating the Clean Water Act and leaving the Waters Authority our drinking water plant is basically lead free. But it flows through the city's decades-old water system. A quarter of homes in the system use lead service lines, which have been banned for decades, but still remain in use and in place. Going over the multitude of problems, Michael Lamb noticed common threads: a lack of leadership within Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority, unauthorized charges, often to cut the cost, and very little accountability. State Auditor General Eugene De Pasquale, when in office, announced his office will conduct a separate audit of the organization to see if blame falls solely on Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority leaders or if there is shared responsibility with the agency's overseers, such as the Department of Environmental Protection, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Allegheny County Health Department. When you don't have consistent, competent leadership, you have a problem, Michael Lamb said. According to Lamb, this leadership failure meant the authority couldn't meet long-term goals as each executive director pushed in their own direction. He also blamed Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority's board for not holding the authority accountable. Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority board members have been appointed to 5-year terms by Mayor Bill Peduto. Mayor Peduto has done nothing but cover up the grotesque crimes of Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority by only suing the privatized company that Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority was in contract with when it caused the Flint water crisis. It's the same water company that caused the Flint water crisis. And instead of pressing charges against this company, PWSA has not been charged at all. And they have not even been charged for not notifying the EPA about changing the chemicals in our drinking water. Amen. Recommendations of the privatized company that again caused both the Flint and Pittsburgh water crisis must be held accountable. They must be held accountable for their complete neglect and grotesque approach to fixing what has been for 3 decades their fault. Thank you.
Receipts, all the receipts. So I'm going to link the full press conference that I caught. I missed the first part, but I got the majority of it. That's going to be linked in our in the Narrative Justice page in our group. But I'm going to link that specific speech by Gabby Gray in the show notes here, because that was very, very important information, right? Like, and Gabby, if you know Gabby, she comes with receipts everywhere she goes. I mean, she's really, really good at it. So shout out to her for that. The Homewood water crisis is absolutely insane. And as you all just heard, has been going on for quite some time. And not just, with Homewood, it's just been going on all together. So it's really, really important that we stay involved. That we, like we use our voices, that we speak out, we speak up, that we tell our stories. We know that there are more people that's been impacted by this crisis. Now, like as I said earlier, there is someone who said that they've been fighting this for 55 years. Gabby just named 3 decades of an issue, right? So this has been going on. There's been an issue here, right? So I'm going to put up the boom. I don't know why it does that. Anyway, so if you do want to get involved, if you have a story, if you've been personally impacted, if you've been displaced or a family member has been displaced, definitely reach out. That number is linked to Miss Tanya Todd, Miss Tanya McClendon Todd. Big shout out to her. Black woman who's been keeping this alive, right? She's been on top of the Homewood water crisis since it started nearly 4 years ago. So if you do have a story, if you want to be involved, you can reach out to her at 412-357-6525, and that will get you involved. And also, as a reminder, there is going to be a public hearing. A public hearing was called by the residents, the Homewood residents, on July 8th. That will be 6 p.m. and it'll be held at Baptist Temple Church. That's 7241 Ray Street, Pittsburgh, PA 15208. Again, but if you need more information, definitely hit that number for Ms. Tanya. The number again is 412-357-6525. And her email is tanyadt7@gmail.com. That's TANYA, D as in dog, T as in Tom, 7@gmail.com. So that's what's going on there. As a reminder, as I say every week, on my other hat, I run the Wellness Collective. Currently, we are helping folks who are struggling with their rent and utilities. We're participating in the Allegheny County Rent Relief Program. So if you are a person who is struggling, you can definitely you can do it online yourself at covidrentrelief.alleghenycounty.us, or you can come and check out any of the drop-in centers. We happen to be operating one in McKeesport. The address is 337 Fifth Avenue, McKeesport, PA 15132. So if you do need, extra assistance with applying for rent relief, rent and utility relief, make sure it's rent and utility. You can check us out Monday through Friday, 10 to 6 on most days. Thursdays is 12 to 8. We also have a food pantry there. So if you'd like to donate to the food pantry, you can do that. If you'd like to receive from the food pantry, it's open. You can just walk in and go grab whatever you want and need. We also have a closet with free clothes, and also other essentials like, cleaning supplies, hygiene products, and whatever else, great things that people donate. Shout out to one of my clients from my business. I'm busy, but they donated a lot of really, really great stuff today, which I'm looking forward to rolling that over into the closet and the pantry tomorrow. So that'll do it for us today. Again, if you are someone who has a story, feel free to reach out to us. You can email us at racialjustice@gmail.com or racialjusticeandmedia@gmail.com. Or you can call or text 412-453-6309. You can leave a voicemail if you would like, and I can call back. But if you have a story to tell, it's really, really important that we are telling our stories. It only takes about 25% of the community for change to occur. Don't think you need everybody on board to make change. You only need a quarter of the community, whatever that community is too, right? Like if we're talking about Pittsburgh is only 310,000 people. So you only need 25% of that, which is not a lot of people. That is not a lot of people. Keep that in mind. There's real power in your story, in your narrative, right? Like there's real power in your voices. Don't ever be afraid to use your voice. Don't ever be afraid to tell your story. It's yours. It is yours. Tell your story and don't let anybody take your voice away. And with that being said, that'll be it for this week. I hope to see you all next week. And if you can support and love on Clarice Burse and her son, Nell, please do. Even if it is reaching out and say, hey, sis, I see you. Even if it is like, saying like, yo, I've dealt with the same thing, similar things. You want to talk. I got a son your age, your child's age. Can they have a little play date? Something like be community, be loving on each other. And also like that accountability is very real. We need Zapala out of the office. Teron Jenkins let us know that he has about 2.5 more years. That means we have 2.5 years to find somebody else to be in that place. So just keep that in mind. That's it. I'm rambling now. So y'all have a good Sunday. Here I am. Bye.